Well, off the back of that, we can tell you that there have been growing calls for government to shut down schools as COVID-19 cases increase rapidly. Teacher unions met with Basic Education Minister Angie last night over the matter. So what are the reasons for wanting schools to close? To tell us about that, we are joined by Mungwena Maluleka from Sadtu, who is the General Secretary at that union. Mr. Maluleka, good morning. Thank you for joining us. How did the meeting with the minister go? Where do we stand at the moment in as far as thinking around whether or not to reopen schools?
Well, let me thank you and greet your viewers at home and appreciate your time and indeed the question. We have had meetings, a series of meetings since Friday, last week and yesterday. We have not registered much progress so far. However, the Department of Education has come back to us yesterday and said that our submission as a collective of the 5 unions that are in education will be part of the discussion in the cabinet, and it will also form part of the discussion in the National Command Center. And therefore they will be able to come back to us in terms of what is the decision of the cabinet around the closure of the schools. They have acknowledged that yes, there are problems in relation to how things are happening in the schools, in particular the standard operating procedures. That needs to be strengthened, but also they've acknowledged that there is a problem with the capacity of the Department of Health in order to help the school. So yes, we are expecting them to really discuss that and come back to us positively, because all of us want to save lives.
Of course. Mr. Maluleka, I mean, considering and acknowledging the cabinet meeting with which the Department of Basic Education has requested that you give time for consultation, have you given them a deadline alongside your demand to say at this particular time or by this particular time we need an answer? Because the World Health Organization still did advise, for schools not to rather open, particularly at a time where that spike is expected, well, around the world.
Yes, when we met on a Sunday, we made it very clear that we needed an answer by yesterday. However, yesterday they came back to us and said to us, look, we have not had a meeting with the cabinet. Please allow us to go and present your case to the cabinet. So we are expecting the cabinet to really respond to our demands today. So yes, we have not just have an indefinite time. We've been able to say to them, look, we cannot continue to be discussing this thing indefinitely. We need to conclude by this week so that we know exactly what is going to happen.
So from your side, though, Mr. Maluleka, is there any scenario in which the schooling year 2020 can be salvaged? And if not, what do you gauge to be the potential impact on the children of this country going forward, particularly given the inequalities that you and I know and are very much aware of that are there in our society, in that some will be able to get some kind of an education going forward, but you may have a large number of pupils who simply never return to the classroom even after we reopen?
Yes, we have made suggestions to the Department of Education as we resolve as an organization, but all collectively as the other unions, that grade 12 could be assisted with a number of programs that could be availed to them, including but not limited to the camps, where there is a controlled environment, where there is no movement, because the issue here is to really cut on this particular movement between home and the school and so forth, as we are within this particular storm. So we suggested that. The other suggestion that we've made was that as and when we reopen, we need to be able to support those learners that are really going to be struggling in terms of transition to the next level, but we also extend the year into 2021 and not put pressure on the teachers and the learners. However, acknowledge that the pandemic has already disrupted the year. So what we could do is to revise what we call the ATPs, so that we look at the concepts, the skills, and the attitudes that the learner would require. So we're not talking about any learner failing, but at least assisting them through the internal processes, but empower the schools themselves to then say, what is it that they have done in the first quarter, and therefore what is it that they can be able to do to ensure that those particular skills and attitudes and knowledge are being covered in a manner that does not put pressure, does not traumatize the parents, does not traumatize the learner and the teacher. So there is an acknowledgement throughout that there are inequalities, and if we were to say, write off the year, you are going to write off the year for almost 80% of the learners in the rural areas that have got no access. And therefore, we have made submission that we need to ramp up all the other platforms to continue to be helping the learners who are still at home. So our teachers will have to be trained in terms of how we can deliver the papers in whatever points that they can be picked up. So we are asking the schools to be very innovative. And we know our schools have always been innovative, improvising, to say how they can send work home and how they can be able to receive that work from the learners. And we have to identify pick-up points and dropping points so that we really remove the movement.
So then, pending the cabinet meeting, Mr. Maluleka, has Sadtu made a decision of what alternatives they will obviously have to take should cabinet still decide to keep schools open?
Well, we will not really want to receive a response from the cabinet that says the schools must remain open for this period, because we said it's winter, it's an influenza season, and therefore we need to have the learners coming back when it's a little bit warmer, and then after we shall have been able to sort out our problems. So to us, there's no question about the fact that we need to close, even if it is a very short break of closing, but we need to close, and then so that it allows us to sort out the problems that are there.
Right.
There's no water in Mpumalanga and many other areas.
And I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Maluleka, but my question is, should cabinet still, even with your concerns being raised, even with your plea to them to close due to all the examples you're making mention of, that is closed, it's a flu season, of course the storm is anticipated, should they still say schools will remain open, then what is your alternative as an organization?
Well, we have made it very clear that we'll call our National Executive Committee, and then we will then look at the alternatives that are there in terms of ensuring that our teachers are safe, the learners are safe, our society is also protected from the possibility of an epidemiological pump that can be opened. So we have a lot of other actions that we can take to put pressure on the government to really listen to the people that are at the coalface of facing learners who are really suffocating, collapsing in our classes, and we need to sort out those particular things. So clearly it is that we will call our National Executive Committee to guide in terms of what form of program of action we can take.
All right, Mungwena Maluleka is the Sadtu General Secretary. Thank you for your engagement this morning. It's really heartbreaking to see what's happening with the schooling year this year. And I mean, some of the concerns are valid. I have observed some of the pupils, in as much as the schools will have put in place social distancing measures and sanitization measures at the school. After school.
Yeah, it's after school.
When they're now walking, I've seen them walking in groups, no masks, hugs, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. So I think beyond the measures, there's still that awareness that still needs to be made by both households. Yeah, they're still, young children, they're still minors. So both parents in the house as well as teachers need to work alongside one another to ensure that that messaging continues.